There was a time when simply trying something new felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. You'd look down, your heart racing, and even though the leap could change everything, your feet froze. Why? Because failing felt final. Because every failure had once carried shame, judgment, or a sense that maybe you just weren't enough. But what if that belief was the real lie? What if staying still was the true failure? We live in a world that praises the winners. We admire the trophies, the applause, the perfectly filtered victories. But almost no one talks about the nights of doubt, the moments of collapse, the silent tears cried behind closed doors. And yet, those moments are where the real transformation happens, not in the winning, but in the breaking and rebuilding. What if your next attempt, your next so-called failure, is the very thing preparing you for a breakthrough you can't even imagine yet? So I want to ask you something. What does failure really mean to you? Is it rejection, disappointment, a sign you're not capable? Or could it be something else? Could it be a message, a mirror, a nudge from life itself, telling you you're moving, you're alive, you're becoming? If you've come this far in the story, tell me in the comments, what part resonated with you the most? What failure in your life shaped you in a way that success never could? There's something almost sacred about trying again. Not because you're sure it will work this time, but because you've decided your fear won't have the final word. That decision, that quiet courage, becomes the turning point for everything. And let me pause here to say thank you, truly, for staying with me until now, for giving this story space in your day. I promise you, the most powerful part is still ahead. You see, most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they never try enough times. They try once, maybe twice, then quit, not realizing that every failure is carving away the unnecessary. Every failed attempt is polishing the diamond. The truth is, each stumble makes you wiser. Every time you fall, you rise with clearer vision, steadier hands, a deeper understanding. Failure doesn't destroy you. It refines you. It removes the ego, the illusions, the shortcuts, and it replaces them with strength. Have you ever looked back and realized that what once broke you actually built you? Think of a sculptor facing a block of marble. The first strike doesn't reveal anything, nor the second. But after dozens, even hundreds of precise hits, something magnificent begins to emerge. You are that sculpture, and your failures, they're the chisel. When you start to embrace failure, truly welcome it, a strange thing happens. You fear it less, you learn faster, you move bolder, because now you know every failure is a seed, and if you keep planting, something beautiful will grow. Imagine walking into a storm, knowing it might hurt, but also knowing that somewhere on the other side, there's a clearer sky. That's what it means to keep trying. That's what it means to fail forward. The pain may be real, but so is the promise hidden inside it. There's something life-changing about failing often enough to stop being afraid of it. The moment you stop flinching after a fall, you begin to rise faster. You recover with purpose. The fear no longer controls the outcome. And once fear loses its grip, possibilities expand. Most people think they need confidence to act. But the truth is, you act first and confidence follows. It's born in the fire of your failures, not in the comfort of your dreams. Every no that you survive teaches your heart that it won't break so easily. And that is, how have you noticed how children fall constantly when they're learning to walk? They stumble, collapse, get up again, hundreds of times. And yet, never once do they say, maybe walking isn't for me. What changes when we grow older? Maybe it's not that we fear failure. Maybe we fear being seen failing. But here's the reality. Most people aren't watching. They're too caught up in their own storms. You are free to fail. You are free to try again. No one is holding you back, except the version of you that still believes failure is shameful. It's not. It's sacred. If you're breathing, you have another shot, another phone call you can make, another project you can begin, another no you can hear without letting it break you. You are never too old, too late, too far gone. As long as there is breath in your lungs, there's ground to cover. Pain has a purpose. It stretches your limits. It exposes your character. It reveals what truly matters when the noise fades. When you've lost the things you thought you couldn't live without, and still find yourself alive, that's when you meet the real you. Faith becomes most real not when everything makes sense, but when nothing does, and you choose to believe anyway. Believe in something greater, in unseen progress, in a purpose even when the pieces don't fit. That's when you're being rebuilt from the inside out. Sometimes the greatest gift you'll ever receive is not getting what you thought you wanted. The closed door, the missed opportunity, the painful goodbye, all of them can be grace in disguise, protecting you from a path that wasn't yours, making room for what is not. So here's a thought. What if you stopped praying for easy? What if you started asking for strength, for clarity, for the kind of peace that doesn't come from comfort, but from the certainty that you're exactly where you need to be, even if you're still falling? There comes a moment when silence becomes louder than applause, when you no longer chase validation, but clarity, when your victories stop needing to be seen, and instead, they're felt deep within. That moment changes everything. What you build in the dark will one day shine in the light, but the work done in silence, without recognition, without reward, is what gives your success its roots. That's what makes it real. That's what keeps it standing when storms return. We often think we need more motivation, but what we really need is commitment. The kind that shows up when no one's watching. The kind that shows up after a failure, after a rejection, after life knocks the wind out of you. That's when your foundation is tested. Life doesn't hand out guarantees. It hands out opportunities dressed in difficulty. And if you're waiting for the perfect moment to start, you'll miss the only moment you actually have, this one. The messy, uncertain, imperfect now. So stop negotiating with your fear. Stop waiting for the doubt to go away. Move, even if you tremble. Move, even if you're unsure. Move. Because the path clears for those who dare to walk, not for those who sit and wonder what could have been. You don't need more time. You need more courage. Time won't give you answers. Courage will. And sometimes courage isn't loud. Sometimes it whispers, try again tomorrow. Sometimes it shows up in quiet persistence. Not grand gestures, just consistency. Failure isn't just part of the journey. It is the journey. And when you start to see each failure as progress, not punishment, your entire world shifts. What once felt like a step back becomes a step deeper into purpose. So here's a question. What's one thing you've been avoiding because you're afraid to fail? Say it, write it, name it, and then take one step toward it. Not because you're ready, but because staying still is no longer an option. You were never meant to live a safe life. You were meant to live a full one, full of risk, passion, heartbreak, healing, falling and rising again. That's what makes life worth living. That's what makes your story worth telling. And if no one told you this yet, I will. You're doing better than you think. You've survived more than you realize. And every time you failed but didn't quit, you grew. Maybe not in ways the world sees, but in ways that matter the most. There's something sacred about persistence. When the world tells you to stop, but you keep going. When your past tries to define you, but you choose to rewrite the script. That persistence, quiet and wavering, becomes your legacy. Sometimes, the people around you won't understand your journey. They'll see your failures and shake their heads. They won't see the strength it takes to keep walking with scars. But your story was never meant to make sense to everyone, only to the one who lives it, you. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Not anymore. You've already fought battles they didn't see. You've carried weight they'll never know. And through it all, you never gave up. That is enough. Grace means you can start over. Not because you earned it, but because you are loved enough to be given another chance. Failure doesn't disqualify you from growth. In fact, it qualifies you in ways success never could. There will be days ahead when the old fear returns, when the doubt creeps in, when you'll question your path all over again. On those days, remember this moment, remember this story, and remind yourself, I've failed before, I've risen before, I will rise again. The secret is never in avoiding pain. It's in not letting pain define you. It's in letting your wounds breathe, but not bleed forever. It's in finding purpose in the mess, beauty in the breaking, and strength in the rebuilding. Every scar has a story, and when shared with honesty, your scars don't make you weak. They make you real. They become bridges to others who are still hiding theirs, waiting for someone to go first. So go first. Be the one who tries again. Be the one who dares to believe that failure isn't the end. Be the one who chooses hope, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. You've come further than you realize. You've grown deeper than you know. And your willingness to keep walking, to keep falling and rising, is a light to others who've lost their way. And now, as this chapter closes, one truth remains. The secret of success was never about perfection. It was always about persistence, about the quiet decision to triple your failures, not to chase failure, but to chase growth, because on the other side of every fall is a rise you never imagined possible. Sometimes growth feels like loss. You lose a version of yourself. You lose certain people. You lose the comfort of what was familiar. But what remains, what survives the fire, is real. What remains is unshakable. We think success is about gaining, but often it's about shedding the pride, the fear, the old stories we've told ourselves, stories like, I'll never be good enough, or it's too late for me. Stories that once protected us, but now only cage us. Every time you fail and try again, you weaken the grip of those old stories. You prove, in action, that you are more than your past, that you are more than your mistakes, that you are writing something new, one choice at a time. The world doesn't need perfection from you. It needs your resilience, your honesty, your willingness to keep showing up with a heart that refuses to stay bitter, with a mind that chooses to learn rather than close. And yes, sometimes you will be tired of trying, tired of hoping, tired of believing for something better. But even in that weariness, if you can take one more step, you'll discover that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply whispers, I'm still here. There is power in standing back up without applause. There is beauty in rebuilding quietly. No spotlight, no recognition, just you, your determination, and the quiet faith that this time something will be different. Even the soil must be broken before it can grow a seed. Maybe your breaking wasn't punishment, but preparation. Maybe the cracks in your life aren't signs of weakness, but places where the light can finally reach in. You are not defined by what went wrong. You are shaped by what you choose to do next. Not everyone who starts finishes, but those who finish never stop starting, again and again. No matter the outcome, success doesn't always look like fireworks. Sometimes it looks like patience, like forgiveness, like setting boundaries, like walking away from what's comfortable, but no longer aligned with your growth. And remember this, failure is not the opposite of success. It's the process. It's the evidence that you dared, that you cared enough to try. And if you keep trying, no matter how messy, the day will come when you look back and say, it was worth every fall. There are seasons when nothing makes sense, when your best efforts seem to fall flat, when the door stays closed no matter how hard you knock. But even in those seasons, something inside you is being forged, something stronger than circumstance. What if the delay isn't denial, but direction? What if the waiting is refining your vision, sharpening your purpose, and removing distractions you didn't even realize were there? Sometimes the lesson isn't in the outcome, it's in the process. It's in who you become while holding on, while pressing forward, while refusing to let go of hope when it would be easier to walk away. There's a sacred kind of wisdom that can only be found in failure, a quiet knowing that says, I've been through worse, and I'm still standing. That kind of wisdom can't be taught. It has to be lived. And when you carry that kind of strength, you become unshakable, not because you're immune to pain, but because you've learned to walk through it. Not because you never doubt, but because you don't let doubt stop you anymore. Life has a way of humbling us. It strips away what doesn't matter, leaves us face to face with what does. And if you listen closely during those humbling moments, you'll hear the whisper, this is your awakening. You were never meant to walk a path without challenge. The mountain is meant to be climbed. The resistance is meant to be felt. And every time you fall, you gain new footing for the next ascent. So don't curse the climb. Embrace it. Let the wind push against you. Let the weight strengthen your legs. Let the silence sharpen your hearing. Because what's waiting at the top isn't just of you. It's a version of you you've never met before. Do not measure your life by the applause of others. Measure it by how often you got back up. Measure it by the courage it took to begin again, when beginning again felt like the hardest thing in the world. And if today is one of those days where beginning again feels impossible, remember this. Your story is not over. You're not finished. The final chapter hasn't been written, and the pen is still in your hand.